It's Wednesday, July 3rd, 2013, and we are here at York to see 60163 Tornado pulling into the station from London. York will be its stopping place for its journey. The last time we saw the locomotive was back in 2012, and it was in its Brunswick green livery that it wore from 2011. Now the loco has been painted in BR Express Blue from late 2012, and it will transfer back to Brunswick green in 2014. It's no surprise that Tornado is such a big crowd puller. Later, the locomotive and its support coach are now detached from the train, and they're now heading towards the National Railway Museum's yards to be serviced ready for its return trip to London. We will now head to the museum, where on this day they're celebrating the 75th anniversary of a streak's achievement. Inside the Great Hall of the National Railway Museum are all 6 surviving A4s, 3 in working order and 3 as museum displays. 2 of the museum display engines had arrived from overseas in late 2012 for the first time since they left their home country to their new respective countries. This is all to celebrate the 75th anniversary of Sir Nigel Gresley's Mallard's 126 miles per hour at Stoke Bank on July 3rd, 1938. We'll have more on Mallard later on in the video. The first engine we see in the lineup is Sir Nigel Gresley, built at Doncaster Works in 1937. It was the 100th Gresley-built locomotive. It achieved a record of 112 miles per hour of post-war steam with a full passenger excursion from Doncaster Works on the 23rd of May 1959. The engine was withdrawn from service in February 1966 and was preserved by the A4 Locomotive Society and was moved to Crewe. It was later stored at Steamtown at Carnforth, and then in 1994 was based at the Great Central Railway. And then spending some time at the East Lancashire Railway, the engine is now stored at the North Yorkshire Moors Railway on behalf of the Sir Nigel Gresley Locomotive Preservation Trust that operated the A4 locomotive on mainline tours and heritage railways. Our next locomotive is the foreign visitor, Dwight D. Eisenhower, which was built by Doncaster Works on September 4th, 1937. Its first name was Golden Shuttle. However, on September 1945, it was named after the 34th President of the United States of America, who served as the Supreme Commander of the Allied Europe during the Second World War. After its withdrawal in 1963, it was donated to the National Railroad Museum in Green Bay, Wisconsin in the United States. It returned to England in late 2012, along with Dominion of Canada from Halifax, Nova Scotia, nearly 50 years after it left from home soil. The engine will stay here in Britain until 2014. Union of South Africa is our next A4, built in Doncaster 1937. The engine was named after the newly formed Union of South Africa. However, its real name was to be Osprey, but the nameplate had changed to that during the 1980s and early 1990s due to the politics of the time. Bitton was built at the same workshops in 1937. With diesel haulage coming in, Bitton was transferred to Scotland like the other A4s, although it went into storage, and its final days of steam was in 1966. Bitton's run in steam preservation was bad, as it had suffered from cracked frames during the 1970s. It didn't steam until 2007. On June 29, 2013, Bitton was the first locomotive in post-1968 steam to reach 90 miles per hour between London and York, all to celebrate this event. Now we come to the engine that started the legacy of the A4 fleet. This is Mallard, built in Doncaster in 1938. 4 months later, as a new locomotive, it had achieved the 126 miles per hour record at Stoke Bank to defeat the Nazi Germans' record of their DRG Class 05 locomotive, where it reached a record of 86.6 miles per hour, and to beat the LMS's 112 miles per hour record too. Mallard's record was an achievement for steam, and ever since that day, the record is still unbeaten. The engine was retired from railway service in 1963, but was put on the preservation list by British Railways. It was restored as steam in 1986, 2 years before its 50th anniversary run in 1988, by the National Railway Museum. After that, it is now displayed at the NRM for many to see, but some people are still hoping to see the legendary engine in working order in future. This is the dynameter car where the record was set. Our last locomotive is Dominion of Canada, another foreign visitor, this time from Canada. Originally named Woodcock, it was built at Doncaster in May 1937. But in June 1937, it received the name that it wears today. In July that year, the Canadian Pacific Railway fitted a whistle from their home country during the naming ceremony. The engine was withdrawn from service in 1965 and was shipped to Canada as a donation to the Canadian Railway Museum at Delson St. Constant, Quebec, near Montreal. It arrived back in England in October 2012 with Dwight D. Eisenhower. With such great achievement for this event from the NRM, it shows how much great passion they have for history to be celebrated, from the opening of a new railway towards a newly built steam engine. Such a shame that this event will never be repeated again. We now head over to York Station, and we see a Pullman train heading its way back to London. Later, we see Tornado now heading towards its train, ready for its return journey to King's Cross. Tornado was first built in 2008 by the A1 Steam Locomotive Trust at Darlington. It was built from the old designs of Arthur Peppercorn, which the A1s were called the Peppercorn class. The idea of building a new steam locomotive came from a group of men in the late 1980s. Its first planned year was 1998 to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the end of steam. When in steam, it was publicised by the media, appeared in Top Gear in 2009, and had the Prince of Wales on the footplate during its naming ceremony. Tornado had inspired other heritage railways to build steam locomotives that weren't luckily preserved. With its passengers on board, the locomotive is now setting off for London. In our next video, we will now take a look at the Great Central Railway during their summer steam fair.
I hate to say it,